Hi folks, this is Jay. Hope you're okay today. I just want to come back again, revisit that issue about slavery in the Bible. The internet, atheists are pumping out all the time because that's all they can do. They can't really think deeply, so they kind of throw attacks against Christianity, desperately trying to win an argument which they can't win. And basically, they're basically saying that the Bible teaches and condones slavery. Well, I've made a video about it. I think it's a 15-minute video. If you type in slavery in the Bible, just go and have a look at it. And there's an article I refer you to, and also a lecture by a scholar. And basically, I just want to say three things, really, I think. Number one, historical context. As atheists, I've never met an atheist yet who's a real intellectual. I've never met any atheist who's a real intellectual. If you're really an intellectual, you need to know historical context. So when you say to someone, "Oh, did you know there's slavery in the Bible?" I mean, it shows how desperately idiotic, absolutely uneducated you are as atheists. You're uneducated because you don't know the context. If you knew the context of the 4 books, Pentateuch, and the historical context of ancient Near Eastern culture, and you compared the two, then you would know that the slavery, so-called, in the Old Testament is in no way the slavery that was going on in the time of Sennacherib or in the time of the Roman Empire. That you can't compare the two. The Old Testament, from Habermas, an atheist, and from the New Testament as well, gave our Western culture the foundation for morality. You know, so you can go on and start attacking the Old Testament all you want, but at the end of the day, our culture is based on the Old and the New Testament. And the Old Testament, believe it or not, gives dignity to human beings, actually. When you actually look at the Old Testament and study it, all the Old Testament in its context, there is a theology of dignity for human beings, which you wouldn't know as atheists, because all you do is pull out little bits here and there and get everything out of context. So the first thing is look at the historical context of the Pentateuch, and then in relation to ancient Near Eastern culture, and the two are not the same. The requirements of owning a slave in the Old Testament is more like a domestic servant. It's not the same as the slave that you would think from the what to call it, from the deep south in the 1900s, right? So it's not the same. Secondly, Jesus is the paradigm that we look through everything as Christians. You never bring this up. You never bring anything what Jesus teaches. You never bring anything about his teaching, his theology, and how he understands the Old Testament and what he thinks. And Jesus is the ultimate model, and he gave himself and died on a cross for us. And he came to serve so that we might be free. And that's the model. The model is that we do not dominate people, that we serve people. Now that's where Paul applies that in terms of Philemon, where he says, you know, treat your slave as you would treat yourself. It's that service, that love of one another. And that's how the Bible defeats slavery. Not politically. It defeats it by saying, love your neighbour as yourself. But of course, you never bring that up as atheists. You never bring up the teaching of Jesus about love your neighbour as yourself. You never bring up about the theology of the cross and how this relates to slavery. Because you're not intellectually honest. And the whole Old Testament is pointing to Christ, pointing to him, the ultimate model against slavery? What's the Hebrew word for slave? Atheist. Look at the history of Bible translations over the last 500 years on the word slave and do a study, and you'll be shocked at what you find, atheist. You'll be very shocked. What you will find in that study is that the word slave 500 years and before was translated servant. But as the years passed on, and as our modern culture began to think about the issue of slavery, it began to interpret the word servant and put in slave. Because in the ancient Near East, there was no concept of slavery as we understand slavery. Right? So in other words, what Bible translators have done, and what our modern culture does, and what you do, is read our concepts of what we think slavery is into the Bible. But if we looked at the Bible from its own historical context and the actual original Hebrew words and things like that, you will not get a teaching of slavery as you define it. As you define it. And that's because you're not scholars of the Bible. You're not exegetes. You're eisegesis. You're not exegesis. You're not exegetes. You don't know how to exegete text. You never have done, never will do. No one in the atheist world today I know could ever debate me on the issue of exegesis, because you have no idea about it. You're into eisegesis, taking a text out of context. That's all you ever do as atheist. When you ask a Christian or anybody on the streets or wherever you are, did you know there's slavery in the Bible? You're involved in eisegesis, not exegesis. That's taking verses out of context. I suggest, as atheists, you go and do some courses on hermeneutics. I really, really do. Because you're showing yourselves up to be idiots on the World Wide Web and on Google Hangouts. You're complete morons when it comes to studying the Bible. You really are morons. You really don't know what you're talking about. You really, really don't as atheists. You haven't got a clue what you're talking about. When you're throwing out verses and saying this is this and this is that, you haven't got a clue. And the proof is in the pudding, because when people like me who have studied at high academic level theology and studied hermeneutics at the highest level academically, when people like me come forward to challenge you for academic debates, you don't do that. What you do is the shenanigans that you've got up to this year. I'm not going to go into it. You all know that. You don't actually engage people academically on their ground. Someone like me who's trained in hermeneutics, I know the history of hermeneutics, I know all the tales of hermeneutics, I know it all. And so you won't debate people like me. You won't have Google Hangouts with me and have academic debates with people like me, because you know you can't deal with it. That's why people, even the liberals, won't debate me. Even the liberals, such as the New Covenant group and these wet atheists who think they're culturally intellectual, like Christopher Malty or whatever his name is. They won't debate me. Why won't they debate me? Because they're not educated in these areas. They say they are, but the New Covenant groups say they are, but they're not. So basically, you haven't got a clue. You really, really, as atheists, are a total, utter joke on the internet when it comes to exegeting a passage of the Bible. Because not one of you has got any qualifications in it at all. You don't know nothing about it. You don't know what you're doing. And you're a joke. You're an absolute joke. Well, prove to... Alright, I'll ask you a question. Atheists. Have you got a qualification in hermeneutics? Have you ever done a semester on hermeneutics? I win my case. As Jason Burns, have I done a semester on hermeneutics? I've done more than a semester on hermeneutics. I've done years and years and years of academic study in hermeneutics, my friend. And not only have I done years and years, I've sat under some great scholars who have been experts in hermeneutics. Now beat that. But we don't get to debate you. We don't get to debate and bring our first class scholarship on the table to have academic debates with you atheists, because you're cowards and aren't educated in the area. It's the same with historical Jesus studies. There's no one in the world today, apart from the 5 or 6 main Christian apologists, William Lane Craig, James White, Gary Habermas, Lycona, maybe a couple of more. Put them there, they're the top apologists. After them, there's nobody in the world, a Christian apologist, who knows more about the scholarship on the resurrection than me. And trying to get a debate with these atheists is trying to like find a virgin wife in a whorehouse. It's just impossible. Because you're not educated in these areas, and because you're not educated in these areas, you won't debate people in these areas. And so you bunch of cowards and you charlatans spinning your lies on your Google Hangouts, saying, oh, did you know there's slavery in the Bible? Oh, did you know that Jesus didn't rise from the dead? Oh, Jason Burns wants to debate you on hermeneutics on slavery. Jason Burns wants to debate you an academic debate on the resurrection. Oh no, he's an idiot. Him, he's a manic depressive. Get that guy to write some blog posts about his depression and try and get him sectioned. Oh, and while you're at it, throw out some accusations at him and go and ride in Manchester, put a camera on your head and start stir up trouble and get him nearly beat up. That's what they do. You've got no intellectual integrity online, atheists. You've got no intellectual integrity online whatsoever. Nobody's listening to you. Everybody knows that you're a nasty piece of work, a lot of you atheists out there, that you're vicious, attacking people online. And we're waiting for scholarship. We're waiting for scholarly academic debates and discussion. People have been waiting for years, and they're not getting it from you. So I would suggest, if you're going to debate me, go and do a course on hermeneutics before you talk to me, and don't waste my time with these silly arguments against the Bible, where you haven't been able, where you've never even done a semester in hermeneutics. You're just wasting my time. And don't waste my time talking to me about did Jesus rise from the dead when you've never even done a semester on historical Jesus studies. I did a whole semester once on the works of N.T. Wright. Have you any idea what kind of semester that was? I mean, we had books that thick, 800 pages we had to wade through in that semester. And then I get idiots, atheist idiots, who make stupid comments about the resurrection, and they've not even done a semester on the basics of Jesus' life, let alone on an N.T. Wright or a Dominic Crossan or a Dale Allison or anything like that. They've not done a semester on any of those scholars. It's laughable. You're an absolute joke as atheists. I'm sorry. You're an absolute joke. You're an absolute joke. Richard Carrier and all these atheists, they're a joke. They're not in my league. They're not even in any Christian Scholars League. And the vast majority of you online, you're not in anybody's league. You're just pumping out ignorance. Total, utter ignorance. You're a joke. You're a joke. You're a joke. You're a joke, atheists. I'm sorry, but you're a joke. You don't have any qualifications. You're a joke.